Let's first talk about stablecoins. Circle IPO. First of all, before they IPO'd, there were rumors it was going to be acquired, by Coinbase or maybe someone else.
Or Tether.
Exactly. Tether was maybe going to acquire it.
Yeah, that was part of the rumors. Yeah, exactly.
And it was, I think it was priced IPO $31 at around, I think it was $7 billion. Mm-hmm. And then it's just gone up and up and up and up. I think currently, as we're speaking, it's at a $55 billion market cap, which is like 8x. And it's even up in pre-market trading this morning. On a company that didn't have anywhere near the EBITDA that Tether had. I think Tether was like $11 or $12 billion. I think Circle was under $1 billion because they spent so much money on BD. And look, you see them at the conferences. They got the big booths.
Yeah.
That's not cheap.
Well, they're building market share. Exactly.
Yeah. Yes. And so, but this thing just kept going and going and going. Why is that been up so much? And then you talked about the IPO successes. I mean, our good friend Dan Tapiero runs some incredible funds.
He's also our investor.
Exactly. He's invested in you. And, he keeps texting me. It's like every other day there's a new IPO. So Deribit was the derivatives exchange that he sold to Coinbase. He's got Kraken IPO coming up soon. Obviously the Circle IPO is happening. And, he's got a whole portfolio of companies that might also IPO. So I guess there's a tremendous hunger for exposure to these companies. But maybe let's talk Circle. Did that surprise you? Obviously the Genius Act passed around then, but we all thought it was going to pass. And so is Wall Street now seeing this? Is this going to be the gateway drug for crypto around the world?
Well, first of all, stablecoins are probably the one digital asset that's probably found the best product market fit in terms of its activity. And also when you consider the importance for stablecoins in the US, it's certainly under this administration, that they believe how the dollar hegemony can continue to not just sort of maintain, but actually spread and become more dominant, right? Yeah. So really putting out an act like this means that every other place and bank and so on is going to start looking at a stablecoin. I mean, I think, Amazon and Walmart and other companies
that scares the banks.
It's like,
they're about maybe to be taken out.
Yeah, potentially. Potentially, right? Yeah. But there is also this sort of ability to really spread the use of the US dollar in a much more larger way. When you consider that Tether and Circle, I think combined, were probably the 6th largest buyers of T-bill last year. That's bigger than Japan and Germany combined. Let's think about that, right?
Crazy.
So you essentially have private enterprises buying more treasury bills than essentially the sort of 2 US sovereign allies. That says something. And you can imagine how that's going to extend even further. So you can see the importance of stablecoins and why the US really needs to push that. Which also means, by the way, that other countries in the world are just going to sit back and say, okay, let's see that happen. They're going to have to respond themselves as well. So actually, just ahead of the Genius Act, Hong Kong and LegCo just passed their stablecoin act, probably 3 to 4 weeks slightly ahead of the US, right? And we're one of the sort of sandbox participants together with Standard Chartered. And I would say to this point, that makes us still the only JV partner of an actual sort of note issuing bank or just any bank in the world, which is actually quite exciting. The very first stablecoin obviously is going to be a Hong Kong dollar stablecoin, and let's see where it goes. But of course, what's interesting isn't just what's happening in Hong Kong, right? The things that happen in Hong Kong happen to an extent with the blessing of China. And when you look at, for instance, most recently, there's been some statements around saying from the government around how actually Hong Kong is an ideal place to experiment around what it would mean essentially to have a stable coin. So I think those are things that happen. Hong Kong has always been that financial gateway for experimentation for China. And even today, you can't trade stocks freely in China. You can't move capital around as you can in Hong Kong. Hong Kong has been essentially all this gateway all the time, which is also the reason why the US has been targeting Hong Kong. When you think about, for instance, up until sort of recently, Hong Kong was a free trade part where it had different rules to China. And the US basically shut that down. Most other countries didn't follow. It was basically just the US. Why did they do that? They didn't do that because it was just about basically because of the protests or because of so-called sort of civil liberties. That wasn't really the reason. The reason why is because they were basically trying to sort of create a policy to see that they can basically create more of controls over basically China, because they knew that Hong Kong was the financial gateway for that, right? So this is all part of sort of a larger political play. And I think because of the internet, because of information, you can see all of that become sort of more broader and more wider. It draws just so much more attention. So stablecoins isn't just simply a tool. There is a lot of sort of geopolitics, I think, ultimately involved with that as well.
Peter Thiel took $500,000 and turned it into $1 billion using the exact same techniques we're using inside the investment club. He met a CEO, his name was Zuckerberg. He pitched him the deal and he said, okay, I'll give you $500,000. Mark went public and sold the shares to people like you. Well, what happened to Peter? Well, he exited and got a 2,300x return. The wealthy invest in early stage companies, folks. The public markets are for suckers. It's a rigged game. By the way, this happens in crypto as well. It's called pre-sale tokens. This is Solana. Does anybody know this chain? They sold pre-sale tokens for 4 cents. And you can see the date on there, April 5th, 2018. Look at Solana today, folks. That thing's up over 1,000x. The media and Wall Street and all these hype people get you to buy the top. Meanwhile, they put their clients in at the bottom and they use you for liquidity to make their clients rich. You can play this same game. You just have to have the financial education and the deal flow. That's it.
Because of the role and influence of, their respective currencies. Now, what does it mean for Circle? Well, I think Circle has the benefit of being first mover advantage, right? So there's that one aspect. It's also very dedicated towards it. Tether is unlikely to be going IPO. They don't want to. I don't think they need to anyway, right?
Yeah.
And I think Tether has established itself very much as the crypto native stablecoin. And I think it will probably forever hold that place. But when you think about adoption of people who are not in crypto, which is still the vast majority of the world, we shouldn't forget that over 90% of the world actually don't engage with crypto. And for the vast majority of the people who engage in crypto, they only trade them in exchanges. There's about 400 to 500 million people who own crypto. That's a big number. Global population being 8 billion, of course. But only about 10% of those are actually doing it on chain.
Right.
And doing DeFi type of stuff. So for those guys, stablecoins are going to be very important as a medium of exchange. For the vast majority of the world, though, how are they going to move into crypto? They're going to move into crypto through a stablecoin first. They're not going to sort of go there because they just want to buy crypto first, because how do they do that? They first have to convert it into essentially a native digital currency in the asset that they understand, which is a stablecoin. And that's the reason, we wanted to do stablecoin with someone like Standard Chartered, because what Standard Chartered does also is gives the trust to the end user. Again, in our world, we take it for granted that, Circle and Tether, we should trust them because it's dollar backed. But for a normal person who's never engaged with that, they're like, wait, am I comfortable in treating and dealing with a currency issued by what appears to be a private organization? That promises that I have put essentially a one-to-one backing, even if we know that's the case, versus a bank issuing it, right? So that element of trust is still the most valuable currency that's out there. And so I actually think Circle is going to have quite a bit of competition, because all of the other sort of banks in the US are going to say, wait, hold on a second. That's a great business. Why should they have all the fun?
Yeah.
We're going to go out issuing our own stablecoin. So I think as from a macro standpoint, I think it's really good for the industry that so many more stablecoins are being issued. They're going to be pushing them to their clients. They own these stablecoins. And then what are they going to do? They're going to be spending them somehow in the digital space, whether it's to buy a token, to buy an NFT, to buy some assets, and also to use them in digital commerce, which is also why Amazon and those companies are saying, wait, we're commerce companies. Wouldn't it be great if they were dealing with our own currency of sorts that was essentially dollar backed? So again, it makes a lot of sense for those guys. So outside of first mover advantage, though, I do think that sort of mid to long term, Circle will have more challengers. And once the second and third and fourth stablecoin is out and you see some numbers and you can compare against them, I think that excitement will probably start to teeter a bit. However, if I was Circle, I would use their market advantage that they have now and start doing M&A like crazy, right? This is a time when you grow, you know there's competition, use that market power, and I'm sure they're thinking about that right now.
And they have a massive treasury, so they can start scooping things up left and right.
That's correct.
But the Bank of America CEO said even 4 or 5 months ago, as soon as that thing is passed, we're going to have our own stablecoin. And that was still early on. Now we're seeing, like you said, Walmart, Amazon, JP Morgan is doing some kind of a test deposit thing with Coinbase.
A deposit token.
Yeah. Which is wild because, Diamond has just been the most anti-crypto person ever, but also shows this kind of duality of organizations, including Goldman. Goldman always said we don't believe in crypto, but of course,
Goldman, but to be fair, Goldman has been quite early within the teams in crypto, at least in Hong Kong, where a lot of the digital asset activity was based, and now, of course, also in London. Some of the people I know there in the team were some of the earliest buyers of like basically NFTs.
But the official CEO version was they were not interested, even as recently, I thought it's 9 months ago.
But remember also,
whatever that means.
Yeah, but remember also, it has a lot to do with the politics of the time.
Yes, of course.
Right? I mean, you have to also look at where was the political wins literally roughly a year ago.
Okay.
Trump winning was not a certainty whatsoever.
Yes.
Right? And a lot of people basically just thought, okay, well, you know, the fact that if you were going to have essentially, at that point, Kamala become president, then the likelihood of Gensler being out is also not a foregone conclusion whatsoever. And so everyone had to play their cards very carefully. Right?
Yeah.
Hey, I know investing in crypto is scary. It takes a real leap of faith because there are so many scams, rug pulls, and bad actors out there. It's a dangerous business, which is why 95% of people lose all their money. Well, that's why I created the London Real Investment Club, so you can access the hottest deals on the planet and use the crypto bull market to create the generational wealth that you deserve. Join my team of over 100 people from around the world that are making millions of dollars behind the scenes investing in blockchain, AI, Web3 games, DeFi, Bitcoin, and more. Don't miss out. Click the link below to book a call with one of my team now. But hurry, this bull market will end soon.
I know investing in crypto can be scary. That's why you gotta join the investment club. Pull the trigger. Let's do this.